In the summer of 1995, Michael Jordan was at the peak of his powers, fresh off his legendary comeback to basketball, with millions flowing from endorsement deals and a movie contract worth $12 million. He seemed untouchable. Then came the phone call that changed everything. A defective pair of Air Jordan sneakers had shattered a 12-year-old boy's ankle. And his dreams. The boy's mother, a former Nike factory worker named Natasha Chen, was demanding $5 million in damages. Nike's lawyers had a simple plan: settle quietly and make the problem disappear. But when Jordan discovered the truth about those shoes, he made a decision that shocked the business world, stunned his own advisors, and proved that sometimes the most expensive choice is also the most valuable one. This is the story of how a woman who seemed like Jordan's biggest threat became the person who saved his soul, and how his response changed the meaning of victory forever. The afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows of Michael Jordan's home office in Highland Park. He sat behind his mahogany desk, staring at a stack of legal papers. The words seemed to blur together on the page. $5 million, Jordan said quietly. He shook his head. For a pair of shoes. David Stern, his personal lawyer, adjusted his glasses. This David Stern was not the NBA commissioner. He was a short man with gray hair, who had worked with Jordan for 3 years. It could be more than $5 million, Michael, Stern said. If this goes to court and we lose, it opens the door for other lawsuits. We could be looking at $20 million or more. Jordan picked up a photograph from his desk. It showed a young boy lying in a hospital bed. His right leg was in a cast. The boy's eyes looked sad and tired. Tell me about the kid again, Jordan said. Stern opened a thick folder. Marcus Chen, 12 years old, lives in Portland with his mother. He was playing in a youth basketball tournament last summer, fourth quarter of the championship game. He went up for a layup, and when he landed, his shoe fell apart. Fell apart how? The sole separated from the upper part, completely. The boy twisted his ankle badly when he hit the ground, broke it in 2 places. Doctors say he may always have problems with it. Jordan studied the photo again. The boy wore a Chicago Bulls jersey in the picture. Number 23. Jordan's number. His mother is suing us? Suing Nike, technically. But your name is on the shoes. Your face is in the ads. The lawyers say you could be named in the lawsuit too. Jordan stood up and walked to the window. His backyard stretched out below him. A basketball hoop stood at the end of his driveway. He had shot thousands of baskets there over the years. What kind of shoes was he wearing? Jordan asked. Air Jordan 11s. The new ones. They were a limited release for youth players. Only made about 1,000 pairs. I remember those. We rushed them to market for summer tournaments. Stern nodded. That might be part of the problem. Nike's quality control team says there may have been issues with the adhesive they used. But they're not admitting fault. Jordan turned back to his lawyer. What does Nike want to do? And what do you think I should do? Stern closed the folder. Honestly, take Nike's advice. This is business, Michael. You can't save every kid who gets hurt playing basketball. If you fight this, it becomes a big news story. Bad publicity. It could hurt your other deals. Jordan sat back down. He picked up another paper from his desk. It was a contract for a new movie called Space Jam. The studio was paying him $12 million to star in it. When I was 12, Jordan said, I wanted to play basketball more than anything. My shoes were old and torn, hand-me-downs from my brothers. But I didn't care. I just wanted to play. This is different, Michael. This family has lawyers. They're asking for serious money. Jordan looked at the photo again. Something about the boy's face reminded him of himself at that age. The same determined look. The same love for the game. What's the mother's name? Jordan asked. Stern flipped through his papers. Natasha Chen. She's 34 years old. Single mother. Works 2 jobs. Used to work at Nike's factory in Portland until they laid her off 2 years ago. She worked for Nike? For 8 years. In quality control, actually. Jordan felt something twist in his stomach. The woman suing us used to check the quality of our shoes? Jordan stood up again. He walked over to a trophy case that covered one wall of his office. Inside were dozens of awards, NBA championships, Olympic gold medals, MVP trophies, all the hardware that proved he was the best basketball player in the world. But right now, none of it seemed to matter. "I want to meet her," Jordan said. Stern nearly dropped his papers. "What?" "I want to meet Natasha Chen, face to face." "Michael, that's not how these things work. Our lawyers talk to their lawyers. We don't get personally involved." Jordan turned to face his lawyer. His eyes had the same intensity they got during the fourth quarter of a close game. "David, I've spent my whole career being the best at what I do. But maybe I haven't been paying attention to what really matters." "What do you mean?" Jordan pointed at the photo of Marcus Chen. "That boy got hurt wearing my shoes. Shoes that I put my name on. Shoes that I said were the best. If there was really something wrong with them, I need to know." Stern shook his head. "Nike won't like this. They want this to go away quietly." "I don't care what Nike wants right now." "Michael, think about what you're saying. You have endorsement deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars. This lawsuit threatens all of that. If you start getting personally involved, it makes it look like you think there really was a problem." Jordan sat back down and picked up his phone. "Get me Nike's legal department." "What are you gonna tell them?" Jordan looked at his lawyer with a slight smile. It was the same smile he got when he was about to make a play that would surprise everyone. "I'm going to tell them something that's going to shock them." Stern leaned forward. "What?" "That I want to fly to Portland tomorrow. I want to meet this woman and her son. And I want to find out the truth about what really happened to those shoes." The lawyer's face went pale. "Michael, you can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." Jordan stood up and walked toward the door of his office. "Set up the meeting, David. And don't try to talk me out of it." "But Michael." Jordan stopped and turned around. "You know what the real problem is? It's not the $5 million. It's that somewhere out there is a kid who loved basketball as much as I did. And now he can't play the same way because of something that has my name on it." He opened the door and stepped into the hallway. "That's worth more than any contract." Stern sat alone in the office, staring at the legal papers scattered across the desk. In 30 years of practicing law, he had never had a client make a decision like this. He picked up the phone to call Portland. This was either the bravest thing Michael Jordan had ever done, or the most expensive mistake of his career. Maybe both. Natasha Chen wiped sweat from her forehead as she finished cleaning the last table at Wong's kitchen. The Chinese restaurant was finally empty after the lunch rush. Her feet ached from standing for 6 hours straight. "Natasha, you can go home early today," said Mrs. Wong, the restaurant owner. Business was slow. Natasha looked at the clock on the wall. It was only 2:30 in the afternoon. Leaving early meant less money. But it also meant she could spend time with Marcus before her evening job at the grocery store. "Thank you, Mrs. Wong," Natasha said. She untied her apron and hung it on a hook in the kitchen. The July heat hit her as she stepped outside. Portland was having one of its hottest summers ever. Natasha walked 6 blocks to the bus stop, counting the money in her purse. $32 in tips. Not bad for a Tuesday. She climbed onto the number 14 bus and found a seat near the back. As the bus rumbled through the city, she thought about the phone call she had received that morning from her lawyer. $2 million. It was more money than Natasha had ever imagined having. It would pay Marcus's medical bills. It would let them keep their house. Maybe she could even go back to school. But it also meant signing papers that said she could never talk about what happened to Marcus. Never tell anyone that the shoes were defective. Never warn other parents. The bus stopped at 82nd Avenue. Natasha got off and walked 3 more blocks to her apartment building. It was a small 2-story building in Portland's Jade District. Most of her neighbors were immigrants from China, Vietnam, and Korea. She climbed the stairs to apartment 2B and opened the door with her key. "Mom, is that you?" Marcus called from the living room. "Yes, honey. I'm home early." Natasha walked into the living room and found Marcus on the couch. His right leg was propped up on pillows. He was reading a book about basketball. "How's the ankle today?" she asked, sitting down beside him. "Better. I did the exercises the doctor showed me." Marcus moved his foot in slow circles. "See? It doesn't hurt as much." Natasha smiled, but inside her heart was breaking. Before the accident, Marcus could run and jump like any other kid. Now he walked with a slight limp. The doctors said it would get better with time, but it would never be the same. "Are you hungry?" she asked. "I brought you some fried rice from the restaurant." "Thanks, Mom. But first, look what came in the mail." Marcus handed her a thick envelope. Natasha's hands trembled as she read the return address. It was from David Stern, attorney at law, Michael Jordan's lawyer. "What does it say?" Marcus asked. Natasha opened the envelope and read the letter inside. Her eyes grew wide with surprise. "Mom? What's wrong?" Natasha looked at her son. His dark hair was messy from lying on the couch. He wore a faded Chicago Bulls t-shirt. Even after everything that had happened, Marcus still loved Michael Jordan. "The letter is from Michael Jordan's lawyer," she said slowly. Marcus sat up straighter. "Michael Jordan? What does he want?" He wants to meet us. In person." "Really?" Marcus's eyes lit up. "Michael Jordan wants to meet me?" Natasha read the letter again to make sure she understood it correctly. The lawyer was asking if they could meet tomorrow at a location of their choice. He said Michael Jordan wanted to understand what happened and discuss the situation personally. "I don't understand," Natasha said. "Why would he want to meet us?" Marcus grabbed her arm. "Mom, we have to say yes. It's Michael Jordan." Natasha stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the small basketball hoop in the apartment complex courtyard. Marcus used to play there every day after school. Now the hoop sat empty most of the time. "Honey, this might not be a good idea." "Why not?" "Mr. Morrison said we shouldn't talk to anyone from the other side without him there," she said. "But it's Michael Jordan, Mom. He's not like other people. He's the greatest basketball player ever." Natasha walked over to a small table near the window. On it sat a framed photograph of her late husband, David Chen. He was wearing a Portland State University basketball uniform. David had played college basketball before they met. He was the one who taught Marcus to love the game. "What would your father say?" she asked, touching the frame. Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Dad always said that Michael Jordan was special because he never gave up, even when things were hard." Natasha picked up the photo. David had died in a car accident 3 years ago. He never got to see Marcus play in organized basketball leagues, but he had bought Marcus his first pair of real basketball shoes when he turned 10. "Dad also said that you have to stand up for what's right," Marcus continued, "even when it's scary." Natasha walked back to the couch and sat down. "Are you scared about meeting Michael Jordan?" Marcus nodded. "A little, but I'm more excited than scared. What if this is just a trick? What if he's trying to make us feel sorry for him so we'll drop the lawsuit?" Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "What if it's not a trick? What if he really wants to help?" The phone rang. Natasha answered it on the third ring. "Hello? Mrs. Chen? This is James Morrison, your lawyer." "Mr. Morrison, I was just reading a letter from Michael Jordan's attorney." "Yes, I got the same letter. This is very unusual, Mrs. Chen. In 20 years of practicing law, I've never seen anything like this. What do you think it means?" "I'm not sure. It could be a publicity stunt. Or maybe Jordan is genuinely concerned about what happened to Marcus." Natasha watched Marcus doing his ankle exercises. He was determined to get stronger, even though the doctors said he might never play competitive basketball again. "What should we do?" she asked. "That's your decision. But if you do meet with him, I think we should choose the location. Somewhere neutral. And I should be there too." After Natasha hung up the phone, she sat quietly with Marcus for several minutes. "Mom?" Marcus finally said. "Yes? I have an idea about where we could meet him." "Where?" Marcus smiled for the first time all day. "The Burnside Community Center. That's where I was going to try out for the travel team before, you know." Natasha looked at her son. The community center was where Marcus had learned to play basketball. It was where he had dreamed of becoming good enough to play in high school, and maybe even college. "Are you sure you want to go back there?" Marcus nodded. "I think Dad would want us to meet him there. It's where dreams are supposed to come alive." That evening, after Marcus had gone to bed, Natasha sat at her small kitchen table. She had spread out all the medical bills, the legal papers, and the letters from Nike's lawyers. The total amount they owed was $47,000. Even with insurance, Marcus's surgery and physical therapy had been expensive. She also looked at the factory reports she had written when she worked at Nike. Before she was laid off, she had tried to warn her supervisors about problems with adhesive quality. Her reports were stamped "are viewed," but nothing had been done. Natasha picked up the phone and dialed her lawyer's number. "Mr. Morrison? It's Natasha Chen." "Mrs. Chen, have you decided about the meeting?" "Yes. I want to meet with Michael Jordan. But I have one condition." "What's that?" Natasha looked at the photo of her husband on the kitchen counter. David had always taught her to trust her instincts, even when other people disagreed. "I want to meet him at the Burnside Community Center. I want him to see where Marcus learned to play basketball. Where he got hurt wasn't on some fancy court. It was at a small tournament for kids who just love the game." "That's a very specific request, Mrs. Chen." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure, Mr. Morrison. If Michael Jordan really wants to understand what happened to my son, he needs to see where kids like Marcus actually play basketball." After she hung up, Natasha walked to Marcus's bedroom door and looked in. He was sleeping peacefully, his injured legs stretched out under the covers. On his nightstand sat a small trophy from a basketball camp he had attended the previous summer. Natasha whispered, "I hope I'm making the right choice, sweetheart." Tomorrow, she would meet the most famous athlete in the world, a man who had everything money could buy. She wondered if he would understand what it felt like to lose something that couldn't be bought back. Marcus's dreams. The Burnside Community Center looked smaller than Michael Jordan remembered. He sat in the back of his rental car, watching kids play basketball through the building's large windows. The gym hadn't changed much since he had visited Portland years ago for a Nike event. "Are you sure about this, Michael?" asked David Stern from the passenger seat. "We could still meet at a hotel, somewhere more private." Jordan watched a boy about Marcus's age dribble the ball down the court. The kid moved with confidence and joy. It reminded Jordan of himself at that age. "No," Jordan said. "She chose this place for a reason. I want to see what she wants me to see." Jordan's bodyguard, Tony Williams, turned around from the driver's seat. "There are reporters outside, boss. Word got out somehow." Jordan looked toward the street. 3 news vans were parked across from the community center. Cameramen were setting up equipment on the sidewalk. "How did they find out?" Jordan asked. Stern shook his head. "Could have been anyone. Nike, the lawyers, maybe even someone at the community center." Jordan opened his car door. "Doesn't matter now. Let's go." As soon as he stepped out of the car, cameras started flashing. Reporters shouted questions across the street. "Michael, are you here to settle the lawsuit? Is it true Nike might drop you? What do you want to say to the Chen family?" Jordan ignored the questions and walked toward the community center entrance. Tony stayed close beside him, watching for any problems. Inside the building, the sounds of basketball filled the air. Sneakers squeaked on the wooden floor. A coach shouted instructions to young players. The smell of sweat and hard work hung in the warm air. Jordan stopped just inside the doorway and watched the practice. About 20 kids, all between 10 and 14 years old, were running drills. Their skills varied widely, but they all played with the same love for the game that Jordan recognized. "Mr. Jordan?" Jordan turned to see a tall man with gray hair approaching. The man wore a suit and carried a briefcase. "I'm James Morrison, the Chen family's lawyer." "Thank you for coming." They shook hands. Morrison seemed nervous, which was understandable. This meeting was unusual for everyone involved. "Where are Mrs. Chen and Marcus?" Jordan asked. Morrison pointed toward the far end of the gym. "They're over there watching the practice." Natasha wanted Marcus to see the other kids playing first. Jordan looked across the court. He spotted a woman sitting on the bleachers with a young boy. The woman had long black hair and wore simple clothes, jeans, and a white blouse. The boy beside her had his right leg stretched out, and Jordan could see a brace around his ankle. "Should we go over?" Jordan asked. "Actually," Morrison said, "Natasha asked if you would mind watching Marcus first before you meet officially." Jordan was confused. "What do you mean?" "She wants you to see him interact with the other kids. See how he handles his injury. She thinks it will help you understand what this is really about." Jordan nodded. He found a spot on the bleachers about 10 rows up from where the Chen family sat. From there, he could watch both the practice and their reactions to it. The coach called for a water break. Most of the kids ran toward the sideline, but a few stayed on the court to shoot around. Jordan watched as Marcus stood up from the bleachers and limped onto the court. Despite his ankle brace, Marcus moved with purpose. He picked up a basketball and dribbled toward one of the hoops. His movement was different from the other kids. More careful, more controlled, but he still had good form. Jordan leaned forward as Marcus attempted a free throw. The ball swished through the net. Marcus smiled and retrieved the ball for another shot. "He practices here every day," said a voice beside Jordan. Jordan turned to see an older woman with gray hair sitting down next to him. She wore a Portland Trail Blazers t-shirt and looked to be in her 70s. "You know Marcus?" Jordan asked. "I'm his grandmother, Mrs. Chen. And you are Michael Jordan, though I suppose you know that already." Jordan was surprised. He hadn't expected to meet Marcus's grandmother, especially not like this. "Mrs. Chen, I'm sorry about what happened to your grandson." The elderly woman watched Marcus attempt another free throw. This one bounced off the rim. "Marcus still practices every day," she said. "Even with the brace, even knowing he may never play on a real team again." "The doctors said he can't play?" "They said he might always have problems with that ankle. Quick movements, jumping, sudden direction changes, all the things basketball players need to do." Jordan felt a knot forming in his stomach. He watched Marcus line up for another shot. The boy's determination was obvious, but so was his physical limitation. "He still wears your jersey to bed sometimes," Mrs. Chen said, "even after everything that happened." Jordan looked at her. "He does?" "He says you taught him that champions never give up, that they find ways to overcome any obstacle." "He's adapted his game," Jordan observed. "He had to. But it's not the same." Before the accident, Marcus could run and jump with anyone. He had dreams of playing in high school, maybe college. Jordan watched Marcus make a clever pass that led to an easy basket. The boy's basketball IQ was impressive. "He's still a good player," Jordan said. Mrs. Chen nodded. "Yes, but good enough to make the high school team? Good enough for a scholarship? Those dreams are probably gone now." The scrimmage ended, and Marcus walked back toward the bleachers where his mother sat. Jordan could see him limping more heavily now. The exercise had clearly tired his injured ankle. "Why did your daughter-in-law want me to see this?" Jordan asked. Mrs. Chen stood up to leave. "Because she wants you to understand that this isn't about money. It's about a boy who loved basketball as much as you did, and what that love cost him." After Mrs. Chen left, Jordan sat alone for several more minutes. He watched Marcus talk excitedly with his mother about the scrimmage, despite his obvious fatigue. Finally, Jordan walked down the bleachers toward the Chen family. As he approached, conversations in the gym gradually stopped. Kids and parents turned to stare at him. Marcus saw him first. The boy's eyes went wide, and he grabbed his mother's arm. "Mom," Marcus whispered loudly. "It's really him." Natasha Chen stood up slowly. She was smaller than Jordan had expected, probably only about 5 feet 4 inches tall. But there was something in her eyes that reminded Jordan of the toughest competitors he had faced. "Mr. Jordan," she said. Her voice was steady, but Jordan could hear the tension in it. "Mrs. Chen, thank you for agreeing to meet me." They stared at each other for a moment. Jordan realized this was one of the most important conversations of his life, and he had no idea how to start it. Marcus broke the silence. "Are you here to tell my mom you're sorry?" the boy asked. Jordan looked down at Marcus. The boy's directness caught him off guard, but he appreciated the honesty. "I'm here to try to understand what happened," Jordan said. "And yes, I am sorry that you got hurt. But are you sorry about the shoes, or just sorry that I got hurt?" Marcus asked. Jordan knelt down so he was at eye level with Marcus. The question showed a maturity that surprised him. "That's a good question," Jordan said, "and I promise you by the end of our conversation I'll have an answer for you." Natasha looked at Jordan with something that might have been respect. "Marcus, why don't you show Mr. Jordan your ankle brace?" Marcus sat down on the bleacher and rolled up his right pant leg. The brace was made of black neoprene with metal supports on both sides. It looked bulky and uncomfortable. "I have to wear it whenever I play," Marcus explained. "Sometimes when I walk too much. The doctor says maybe forever." Jordan examined the brace more closely. He had worn similar devices during his own injury recoveries, but never permanently. "Does it hurt?" Jordan asked. "Not really. But it's heavy. And I can't move the same way as before." Jordan stood back up and looked at Natasha. "Mrs. Chen, I know this is an unusual situation, But I need to ask you something directly. What? Do you believe the shoes were defective, or do you think this was just an accident that could have happened with any shoes? Natasha was quiet for a moment. Around them, the gym had grown silent as people strained to hear the conversation. Mr. Jordan, Natasha said finally, I worked in Nike's quality control department for 8 years. I know what proper athletic shoes should look like. And I know what happens when corners are cut to meet production deadlines. What do you mean? I mean that the shoes Marcus was wearing should never have been sold to the public. Not in the condition they were in. Jordan felt the knot in his stomach tighten. How can you be sure? Natasha reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. Because I have the factory reports that prove it. She handed Jordan the envelope. Inside were several pages of technical documents with Nike letterhead. Jordan couldn't understand most of the technical language, but he could see Natasha's signature on each report. These are quality control reports you wrote? Jordan asked. 2 months before Marcus got hurt. I documented problems with the adhesive being used in that production run. I recommended that the batch be rejected and remade. What happened to your recommendation? Natasha's voice got harder. It was stamped cost prohibitive and filed away. 6 weeks later, I was laid off for redundancy. Jordan looked at the documents again, then at Marcus, then back at Natasha. I'm saying Nike knew there were problems. They just decided it was cheaper to take the risk than fix the issue. The gym was completely silent now. Even the kids had stopped talking. Jordan realized that everything he thought he knew about this situation had just changed. The next morning, Michael Jordan stood outside Nike's headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon. The massive building stretched across several city blocks. Large swoosh logos decorated the walls. This was where his fortune had been built. Today, it might be where it fell apart. Michael, are you absolutely sure about this? David Stern asked for the 10th time that morning. Nike is not going to be happy about bringing Mrs. Chen inside their facility. Jordan looked at Natasha, who stood beside him holding another manila folder. She wore a simple blue dress and looked nervous but determined. She worked here for 8 years, Jordan said. She has a right to see what happened to her reports. Actually, she doesn't, Stern replied. Not legally. Nike could refuse to let us in. Then we'll see what they choose to do, Jordan said. They walked through the main entrance together. The lobby was filled with displays showing Nike's greatest athletes. Jordan's own image appeared on several walls, dunking, celebrating championships, selling shoes. A security guard approached them. Mr. Jordan, I'm supposed to escort you to the executive conference room. Actually, Jordan said, we want to see the factory floor first. The guard looked confused. The factory floor? Sir, that's not on the schedule. Change the schedule. 10 minutes later, they were joined by 3 Nike executives in expensive suits. The lead executive, a man named Richard Blackwood, seemed angry about the change in plans. Michael, this is highly irregular, Blackwood said. We had planned to meet in private to discuss the settlement. I don't want to discuss a settlement yet, Jordan said. I want to understand what really happened with those shoes. Blackwood glanced at Natasha with obvious discomfort. Mrs. Chen, I'm surprised to see you here. I worked here for 8 years, Natasha replied calmly. I helped make the shoes that have your company's name on them. And his. She pointed at Jordan. Blackwood forced a smile. Of course. Well, let's go to the conference room. The factory floor. Jordan interrupted. Now. The group walked through several hallways before reaching a set of double doors marked production area authorized personnel only. Beyond the doors was a massive room filled with machinery and conveyor belts. Hundreds of workers assembled shoes at different stations. The air smelled of rubber and adhesive chemicals. This is where the Air Jordan line is manufactured, Blackwood explained, speaking loudly over the machine noise. Natasha walked over to one of the assembly stations. She picked up a partially completed shoe and examined it closely. This isn't where I worked, she said. My station was in quality control, where shoes were tested before shipping. That's a different area, Blackwood said quickly. I don't think we need to. Show us, Jordan said. Reluctantly, Blackwood led them to another section of the factory. This area was quieter, with workers examining finished shoes under bright lights. They checked stitching, tested flexibility, and looked for defects. Natasha stopped at an empty workstation. This was my station. Number 4. She ran her hand over the desk surface. There were still marks where her equipment had been mounted. I tested the bond strength between the sole and the upper part of each shoe. Every shoe in certain production runs got tested. If I found problems, I wrote reports. Jordan watched her demonstrate how the testing worked, even though the equipment was no longer there. How many shoes did you test each day? About 200. On busy days, more. Blackwood shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Chen, perhaps we should discuss your employment termination privately. No, Jordan said firmly. I want to hear this. All of it. Natasha opened her folder and pulled out several documents. These are copies of the reports I filed about adhesive problems, all from March and April 9. Jordan took the papers and tried to read them. The technical language was difficult to understand, but he could see dates, test results, and recommendations. Explain this to me like I'm 12 years old. Jordan said. Natasha pointed to a section of one report. This shows that the adhesive being used in the Youth Air Jordan 11 line was failing stress tests. When I pulled on the shoes to simulate basketball movements, the soles came apart. How often? In the batch I tested, about 15% of the shoes failed. That's way above the acceptable rate of less than 1%. Jordan felt his stomach drop. 15%? Sometimes higher. I recommended that the entire batch be scrapped and remade with different adhesive. Blackwood stepped forward. Mrs. Chen, those were preliminary tests. The final production used different materials. No, it didn't, Natasha said sharply. I have the chemical composition reports right here. She handed Jordan another document. This one showed 2 columns of numbers and chemical names. The left column is what I tested in March. The right column is from the shoes that injured Marcus. They're identical. Jordan stared at the numbers. He didn't understand the chemistry, but he understood what Natasha was telling him. You're saying Nike used the same defective adhesive that you warned them about. I'm saying they used adhesive they knew was defective. Blackwood's face was red now. To Michael, this is exactly why we wanted to meet privately. These allegations are they true? Jordan asked. The Nike executive didn't answer immediately. Are they true? Jordan asked again, louder this time. The situation was more complex than Mrs. Chen is suggesting, Blackwood finally said. Jordan turned to Natasha. What happened after you filed these reports? For 2 weeks, nothing. Then my supervisor called me into his office. He said the reports had been reviewed by upper management. They decided the risk was acceptable because most customers wouldn't stress the shoes enough to cause failure. Most customers? Casual players. Kids who just wore them to school. They figured serious athletes would replace their shoes more often anyway. Jordan felt anger building in his chest. But Marcus wasn't a casual player. No, he was playing in a competitive tournament. Jumping, cutting, running hard. Exactly the kind of use that would stress the adhesive. Jordan looked around the factory floor. Workers continued their jobs, unaware of the conversation happening nearby. How many shoes were made with this defective adhesive? Natasha consulted her papers. According to the production records, 47 pairs in the youth size range. And how many injuries have been reported? Blackwood answered this time. As of yesterday, 23 families have contacted us about shoe-related injuries. Jordan did quick math in his head. That's almost 3% of the total production, which is still a small number, Blackwood said defensively. Small. Jordan turned to face the executive. We're talking about kids getting hurt. 23 families dealing with what the Chen family is going through. Michael, you have to understand the business reality, Blackwood said. Every product has some failure rate. We can't guarantee perfection, but you can guarantee that you'll listen when your own quality control experts warn you about problems. Jordan looked at Natasha, who was staring at her old workstation, with sad eyes. What happened to you after you filed the reports? Jordan asked her. 6 weeks later, I was called into human resources. They said Nike was downsizing and my position was being eliminated. They offered me a severance package if I signed an agreement not to discuss proprietary Nike information. Did you sign it? I had to. I needed the money. I was a single mother with bills to pay. Jordan realized the full scope of what had happened. Nike had ignored Natasha's warnings, used the defective materials anyway, and then silenced her by eliminating her job. But you kept copies of your reports, Jordan said. My husband always told me to keep records of important things. I never imagined I'd need them like this. Jordan walked over to a large window that looked out over the Nike campus. Hundreds of employees were walking between buildings, going about their daily work. Most of them probably had no idea that their company had knowingly sold defective products. "Mr. Jordan," Natasha said quietly, "I want you to know something." Jordan turned back to her. "When Marcus got hurt, my first thought wasn't to sue anyone. My first thought was that I had failed somehow, that I should have tried harder to stop those shoes from being sold." "That's not your fault," Jordan said. "But I knew there was a problem. I documented it. I tried to warn people. And when they didn't listen, I just gave up." Jordan could hear the pain in her voice. "I gave up because I needed the job. Because I couldn't afford to fight a big company. Because I thought someone else would fix the problem. But no one did," Jordan said. "No one did. And then I watched my son get hurt by the exact thing I had tried to prevent." The factory floor around them suddenly felt very quiet, despite all the machinery still running. Jordan looked at Blackwood, who was checking his phone and trying to appear busy. "I want to see the archives," Jordan said. "What archives?" Blackwood asked. "Where you keep the quality control reports." "All of them." "From that time period." "Michael, that's proprietary company information. We can't just—" "Yes, you can. I'm asking as your business partner. I want to see what other warnings were ignored." Blackwood looked like he wanted to refuse, but he knew he couldn't say no to Michael Jordan. "Fine. But this stays between us." 20 minutes later, they were in a climate-controlled room filled with file cabinets. A Nike archivist helped them locate the relevant documents from early. Jordan and Natasha sat at a table, going through box after box of reports. Most were routine quality checks with no problems noted. But scattered throughout were other warning reports. "Look at this," Natasha said, handing Jordan a report dated 2 weeks after her own. The document was signed by a different quality control worker. It reported similar adhesive problems in adult-sized Air Jordans. "And this one," she said, showing him another report. "Same issue, different production line." Jordan found a fourth report, then a fifth, all documenting the same problem, all recommending the same solution: stop using the defective adhesive. At the bottom of each report was the same stamp: Chast Prohibitive Archive. How much would it have cost to fix the problem? Jordan asked Blackwood. The executive consulted his phone. "I'd have to check with accounting, but probably around $200,000 to remake the affected batches." Jordan stared at him. "Plus production delays. Maybe another $300,000 in lost sales. $500,000 total? Approximately." Jordan stood up from the table. "You risked 23 kids getting hurt to save $500,000. Michael, you're oversimplifying." "Am I?" "Because from where I sit, it looks like Nike decided that paying injury settlements would be cheaper than fixing the shoes." Blackwood didn't respond. Jordan looked at all the reports spread across the table. Each one represented someone trying to do the right thing. Someone trying to prevent exactly what had happened to Marcus. All of them had been ignored. "Mrs. Chen," Jordan said, "I owe you an apology." Natasha looked up from the documents she was reading. "Not just for what happened to Marcus, but for what happened to you. You tried to prevent this. You did your job, and instead of listening to you, they silenced you." "Mr. Jordan." "Michael. Call me Michael." Natasha smiled for the first time since he'd met her. "Michael, I appreciate that. But apologies don't fix Marcus's ankle." "No, they don't. But maybe we can fix the system that broke it." Jordan turned to Blackwood, who was now looking very uncomfortable. "I want a meeting with Nike's CEO. Today." "Michael, I don't think that's today. And I want a complete list of every family that's been affected by this adhesive problem." "Why?" Jordan picked up one of Natasha's original reports and held it up. "Because someone's going to be held accountable for this. And it's not going to be the woman who tried to prevent it." He looked at Natasha, then back at Blackwood. "It's going to be the people who decided that $500,000 was worth more than children's safety." As they left the archives room, Jordan realized that his relationship with Nike might be ending today. But for the first time in weeks, he felt like he was doing something that mattered more than money. That evening, Michael Jordan sat in his hotel suite at the Portland Marriott. The city lights sparkled below his window. But he wasn't looking at the view. Instead, he stared at the stack of documents Natasha had given him earlier. 23 families. 23 kids who had been hurt by shoes that carried his name. A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Jordan opened it to find Natasha Chen standing in the hallway. She looked tired but determined. "I hope I'm not bothering you," she said. "The front desk told me your room number." "Mrs. Chen." "Natasha. Please, come in." She entered the suite and sat down on the couch across from where Jordan had been working. The coffee table between them was covered with papers, phone numbers, and legal documents. "I wanted to thank you for today," Natasha said. "For listening. For caring enough to see the truth." Jordan sat back down and rubbed his eyes. "I should have known. I put my name on those shoes. I should have made sure they were safe." "You couldn't have known. Nike kept the problems hidden even from their own workers. But I could have asked harder questions. I could have visited the factory more often. I could have..." Jordan paused. "I could have been more than just a face on a poster." Natasha looked at the papers spread across the table. "What are all these?" "Information about the other families. The other kids who got hurt. I had my assistant track down as many as we could find." Jordan picked up a file and opened it. Sarah Martinez, age 10, from Phoenix. Broke her foot when her shoe sole separated during a playground game. Tommy Washington, age 13, from Detroit. Twisted knee, needed surgery. He set the file down and picked up another one. Jennifer Liu, age 11, from San Francisco. Sprained ankle so badly she couldn't walk for 6 weeks. And that's just the first 3 files. Natasha listened quietly as Jordan continued reading names and injuries. "You know what the worst part is?" Jordan asked. "Some of these kids still look up to me. Their parents said they still wear Bulls jerseys. They still want to play basketball like Michael Jordan. Even after getting hurt? Even after getting hurt by shoes with my name on them." Jordan stood up and walked to the window. "I keep thinking about when I was their age. All I wanted was a chance to play, a chance to prove myself. And these kids, they had that same dream, until it got taken away by something that should have protected them." Natasha joined him at the window. "Marcus still has that dream, you know? Even with his ankle. Especially with his ankle. He practices every day trying to find ways to play around the injury. He says Michael Jordan came back from retirement, so he can come back from this." Jordan felt a tightness in his chest. He shouldn't have to come back from anything. He's 12 years old. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, looking out at the city below. "Can I ask you something?" Natasha said. "Of course. Why are you really doing this? You could settle with all these families quietly, pay the money and move on. Why risk your business relationships for people you don't even know?" Jordan turned to face her. "Because I just spent the day learning that my success was built partly on ignoring people who were trying to do the right thing. People like you." "What do you mean?" "You tried to warn Nike about the defective adhesive. You did your job perfectly. And instead of listening to you, they fired you. Then they sold the dangerous shoes anyway." Jordan walked back to the couch and sat down. "Do you know how much money I've made from Nike over the years?" Natasha shook her head. "Over $100 million. And during all that time, I never once asked to meet the people who actually made the shoes. I never asked about quality control. I just showed up, took pictures, signed autographs, and collected my checks. You didn't know. I should have known. And if I had taken the time to know, maybe I would have met you years ago. Maybe I would have listened when you tried to warn people." Jordan picked up his phone from the coffee table. "I want to call Marcus." Natasha looked surprised. "Now? Right now, I want to talk to him." Natasha gave Jordan her home phone number. He dialed it carefully. "Hello," came Marcus's voice on the other end. "Marcus, this is Michael Jordan." There was silence for a moment. Then Marcus's excited voice, "Really? It's really you? It's really me. Is it okay if we talk for a few minutes?" "Yes." "Mom, it's Michael Jordan on the phone." Jordan could hear Marcus calling to his mother, not realizing she was sitting right there. "Marcus," Jordan said, "I wanted to ask you about your ankle. How are you feeling?" "It's okay, it hurts sometimes, but I'm getting stronger. I can almost run normally now." "That's great. Are you still playing basketball?" "Every day. I can't jump as high as before, but I'm working on my shooting and my passing. My coach says I have good court vision." Jordan smiled. Court vision is really important. Some of the best players aren't the ones who jump highest or run fastest. They're the ones who see the whole game. Really? Really? Can I tell you about a player named John Stockton? For the next 15 minutes, Jordan talked with Marcus about basketball strategy, famous point guards, and how to turn physical limitations into mental advantages. Marcus asked thoughtful questions and showed a deep understanding of the game. Marcus, Jordan said finally, I want you to know something important. What? What happened to your ankle wasn't your fault. It wasn't bad luck. It was because some adults made bad decisions about the shoes you were wearing. I know, Mom told me. But here's the thing. You get to decide what happens next. You can let this injury define you, or you can use it to become an even better player in other ways. How? By being smarter than everyone else on the court. By seeing plays before they happen. By being the player who makes everyone around him better. Like Magic Johnson? Exactly like Magic Johnson. After Jordan hung up, he and Natasha sat quietly for a moment. He's a special kid, Jordan said. He gets that from his father. David always said that challenges don't break you. They reveal who you really are. Your husband sounds like he was a wise man. Natasha nodded. He would have liked you. Not because you're famous, but because you're willing to do the right thing even when it's difficult. Jordan's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and frowned. It's my business manager, he said to Natasha. I should take this. Michael, came Curtis Jackson's voice on the phone. We need to talk. Now. What's wrong, Curtis? What's wrong? I just got off the phone with Nike's lawyers. They're saying you're threatening to go public with internal company documents. They're talking about ending your contract. Jordan looked at Natasha, who was pretending not to listen. Curtis, I'll call you back in a few minutes. Michael, don't hang up. This is serious. Nike is your biggest source of income. If they drop you, I said I'll call you back. Jordan hung up and turned to Natasha. That was about the Nike situation, he said. I figured. Are you in trouble? Probably. Nike doesn't like people asking questions about their business practices. Natasha stood up to leave. I should go. I don't want to cause more problems for you. Natasha, wait. She turned back to him. The problems aren't your fault. They existed long before I met you. You just helped me see them. But if Nike ends your contract, then Nike ends my contract. There are other shoe companies. But the money, Jordan interrupted her. I have more money than I'll ever need. What I don't have is the ability to look at myself in the mirror if I walk away from this. Natasha studied his face. You're really willing to risk everything for this? I'm willing to risk everything for Marcus. And for those 22 other kids. And for you. For me? You lost your job for trying to do the right thing. That's not acceptable. Someone needs to stand up and say that people like you matter more than corporate profits. Jordan's phone rang again. This time it was David Stern, his lawyer. Michael, I just heard from Nike's legal team. They want to meet tomorrow morning. They're bringing their CEO. Michael, they're not calling this meeting to congratulate you. They're probably going to make you choose between the investigation and your contract. Jordan looked at Natasha, who was listening to his side of the conversation. Then I guess I know what my choice will be. After Jordan hung up, Natasha sat back down. Michael, I need to tell you something. What? Before I came here tonight, I met with Nike's lawyers myself. Jordan felt his stomach drop. What did they want? They offered me $3 million to settle quietly. And they asked me to convince you to drop your investigation. What did you tell them? Natasha looked directly into his eyes. I told them that some things are more important than money. That my son's injury meant something. And that I wasn't going to let them silence you the way they silenced me. Jordan stared at her in amazement. You turned down $3 million? I turned down blood money. Money they were offering to make their problem go away. Natasha, that's more than enough to pay for Marcus's medical bills. College. And what about the next Marcus? The next kid who gets hurt because Nike decides to use cheap materials? What about his medical bills? Jordan realized he was looking at one of the most principled people he had ever met. Jordan's phone rang a third time. The caller ID showed his wife's number. I should take this, he said to Natasha. Juanita? Michael, what's going on? Curtis called me, very upset about some Nike situation. It's complicated, honey. I'll explain everything when I get home. Are you okay? You sound stressed? Jordan looked at Natasha, who was gathering her papers to leave. I'm okay. Actually, I'm better than I've been in a long time. What do you mean? I mean, I'm doing something that matters. Really matters. Even if it costs us money. Jordan smiled. Especially if it costs us money. Some things are worth more than what they cost. After he hung up, Jordan walked Natasha to the door. Thank you, he said. For what? For showing me what courage looks like. For turning down their money. For putting Marcus's future ahead of your own financial security. Natasha smiled. Thank you for showing Marcus that his hero is a real person. Someone who cares about doing the right thing. As she left, Jordan returned to his window overlooking the city. Tomorrow's meeting with Nike could end his most profitable business relationship. But tonight, for the first time in years, he felt like Michael Jordan the person was more important than Michael Jordan the brand. And that feeling was worth any amount of money Nike could threaten to take away. The next morning, Michael Jordan stood in the lobby of Nike's executive building at 7:30 a.m. He wore his best suit and carried a briefcase full of documents. This meeting could change everything. David Stern paced nervously beside him. Michael, it's not too late to change your mind. We could still work out a quiet settlement. No, Jordan said firmly. We're doing this. The elevator doors opened on the 20th floor. A secretary led them to a massive conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Nike campus. 6 people were already seated at the long table. Jordan recognized Phil Knight, Nike's founder and CEO, at the head of the table. The other 5 were lawyers and executives in dark suits. Michael, Phil Knight said, standing up to shake hands. Thank you for coming. Jordan shook hands, but didn't smile. These people had been like family to him for years. Today felt like a divorce. Everyone sat down. The tension in the room was thick. Knight got straight to the point. Michael, we have a problem. Our legal team tells me you're making accusations about our quality control. You're talking to reporters. You're threatening our business relationship. I'm not making accusations, Jordan said. I'm asking questions about facts. Jordan opened his briefcase and pulled out Natasha's reports. He slid them across the table. These are quality control reports from your own employees. They show that Nike knew about defective adhesive in the Air Jordan 11 youth line. You sold the shoes anyway. Knight didn't look at the papers. Michael, every manufacturing process has some defects. We can't be perfect. Those reports were reviewed by our technical team. They determined the risk was minimal. Jordan felt his anger rising. 23 kids got hurt, Phil. How is that minimal? One of the lawyers, a woman in her 40s, spoke up. Mr. Jordan, we need to be careful about what we say in this room. These are sensitive legal matters. Sensitive? Jordan turned to face her. You know what's sensitive? A 12-year-old boy who may never play competitive basketball again because you wanted to save money on adhesive. Knight held up his hand. Michael, let's all take a deep breath. We called this meeting to find a solution that works for everyone. What kind of solution? We're prepared to offer you a new contract. 5 years, $50 million guaranteed. Plus incentives that could bring it up to $75 million. Jordan stared at him. You're trying to buy my silence. We're trying to protect our partnership. You're our most valuable athlete, Michael. We don't want to lose you over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Phil, children got hurt. Your company knew they might get hurt and sold the shoes anyway. That's not a misunderstanding. That's negligence. Another executive, Richard Blackwood from the previous day, leaned forward. Michael, if you continue down this path, you'll force us to terminate your contract entirely. Think about what that means. Tell me. No more Air Jordan line. No more signature shoes. No more endorsement income from Nike. We're talking about potentially $20 million per year in lost revenue. Jordan did quick math in his head. Over 5 years, that was $100 million. Over 10 years, it could be $200 million or more. And if I take your new contract and stop asking questions, then we all move forward, Knight said. We quietly settle with the affected families. We improve our quality control going forward. And we never have to discuss this situation again. Jordan looked around the table at the faces staring at him. These people had made him wealthy beyond his wildest dreams. They had turned him into a global icon. What about Mrs. Chen? Jordan asked. What about her? Knight replied. Knight shrugged. That's a personnel matter. Ancient history. Ancient history? Jordan's voice got louder. She tried to warn you about defective shoes. Instead of listening, you fired her. Then those same defective shoes hurt her son. And you call that ancient history? Michael, please lower your voice, the female lawyer said. No. Jordan stood up. I won't lower my voice. Do you people have any idea what you've done? He walked over to the windows overlooking the Nike campus. I spent yesterday reading files about 23 injured children. Kids who trusted your products. Kids who looked up to me because my name was on those products. Jordan turned back to face the table. Sarah Martinez, 10 years old, from Phoenix. She broke her foot so badly she needed 3 surgeries. Tommy Washington from Detroit. He tore ligaments in his knee. May need a replacement when he's older. Michael Knight started to say, I'm not finished. Jennifer Liu from San Francisco, 11 years old. She was the best player on her school team until your defective shoe destroyed her ankle. Now she can barely walk without pain. Jordan walked back to the table and put his hands on it, leaning forward. And Marcus Chen, 12 years old. His dream was to play high school basketball, maybe get a college scholarship. Now he practices every day just hoping he can run normally again. The room was completely silent. Knight's voice was calm but firm. Michael, I understand you're emotional about this, but you need to think practically. If you walk away from Nike, you're walking away from the most successful athlete endorsement deal in history. Maybe that deal was never as successful as I thought. Jordan sat back down. Maybe I've been measuring success by the wrong things. Money, fame, sales numbers. Maybe I should have been measuring it by whether kids got hurt using products with my name on them. The female lawyer opened a folder. Mr. Jordan, let me show you some numbers. Your Nike contract has generated over $2.5 billion in shoe sales since 1984. Your personal income from that deal is over $100 million. If you terminate that relationship now, if I terminate it now, maybe I'll be able to sleep at night. Knight leaned back in his chair. Michael, you're being naive. This is business. Sometimes people get hurt. It's unfortunate, but it's not personal. Not personal? Jordan's voice was dangerously quiet. Phil, everything about this is personal. Those kids who got hurt, they were wearing shoes with my face on the box, my signature on the sole. My promise that they were getting the best. You didn't know about the adhesive problems, but you did. And you're my business partner. That makes it my responsibility too. Jordan opened his briefcase again and pulled out another stack of papers. These are contact details for all 23 families. I spent last night calling them. Do you know what most of them told me? The executives waited. They told me their kids still look up to me. Even after getting hurt. Even after learning that the shoes were defective. They still believe Michael Jordan stands for excellence and integrity. Jordan's voice cracked slightly. How am I supposed to live up to that belief if I take your money and walk away? Knight stood up and walked to the windows. Michael, you're putting us in an impossible position. How so? If you go public with these allegations, it won't just hurt Nike, it'll hurt you too. The media will ask why you didn't know about quality control issues with your own signature product. Let them ask. I'll tell them the truth. That I trusted my business partners to do the right thing. And that when I learned they hadn't, I tried to fix it. The publicity will be terrible, Blackwood added. Your reputation could be damaged. Jordan thought about that for a moment. His reputation was built on being the best, on never giving up, on winning at all costs. Maybe my reputation needs to be damaged, he said finally. Maybe I've cared too much about looking perfect and not enough about doing what's right. Knight returned to his seat. Michael, I'm going to ask you one more time. Will you accept our new contract offer and allow us to handle this situation quietly? Jordan looked at each person around the table. These people controlled hundreds of millions of dollars. They had the power to make or break careers. They were used to getting their way. No, Jordan said simply. No, I won't take your money. No, I won't stay quiet. And no, I won't let you handle this situation the same way you handled Natasha Chen's warnings. The room erupted in whispered conversations between the executives and lawyers. Knight held up his hand for silence. Michael, I need you to understand what you're saying. If you refuse our offer and continue this investigation, we will have no choice but to terminate your contract immediately. I understand. You'll lose millions of dollars in guaranteed income. I understand. Other sponsors may distance themselves from the controversy. You could lose endorsement deals worth tens of millions more. I understand. Knight stared at him for a long moment. Then you're making the biggest financial mistake of your career. Jordan stood up and closed his briefcase. Phil, I've made a lot of mistakes in my career. I've missed game-winning shots. I've lost important games. I've said things I regret. He walked toward the door. But the biggest mistake I could make would be walking away from kids who need someone to stand up for them. Michael, wait, Knight called out. Let's talk about this more. Maybe we can find a compromise. Jordan stopped at the door and turned back. The only compromise I'm interested in is this. Admit you knew about the defective shoes. Apologize to the families who were hurt. Pay for their medical expenses without requiring them to stay silent. And make sure this never happens again. That's not a compromise. Blackwood said, that's surrender. Jordan smiled for the first time since entering the room. Sometimes surrender is the most courageous thing you can do. He opened the door and walked out, leaving behind the most profitable business relationship of his life. In the hallway, David Stern caught up with him. Michael, do you realize what just happened in there? Yes. I just chose my integrity over my bank account. You just walked away from potentially hundreds of millions of dollars. Jordan pressed the elevator button. David, I've got more money than I'll ever need. What I don't have is 23 kids who can play basketball the way they used to. The elevator arrived and they stepped inside. So what happens now? Stern asked. Now we call a press conference. It's time to tell the world what really happened to those shoes. As the elevator descended, Jordan felt something he hadn't experienced in years. He felt nervous about the future, but completely certain that he was doing the right thing. It was the same feeling he got right before hitting a game-winning shot. By noon the next day, the story was everywhere. Michael Jordan sat in his Chicago home watching ESPN SportsCenter with growing amazement. His face filled the television screen as anchor Dan Patrick delivered the breaking news. In a shocking development, Michael Jordan has ended his relationship with Nike after accusing the company of knowingly selling defective basketball shoes that injured children. Sources close to the situation say Jordan walked away from a contract worth up to $75 million. The phone hadn't stopped ringing all morning. Jordan's wife, Juanita, finally unplugged it from the wall. How did this get out so fast? She asked, sitting down beside him on the couch. I don't know. We were planning to hold a press conference this afternoon. The TV switched to a live report from outside Nike's headquarters. Protesters had gathered with signs reading "Kids Before Profits" and "Justice for Marcus Chen." At least someone's paying attention, Jordan said. Juanita squeezed his hand. Are you okay with all this? Jordan thought for a moment. I'm scared about what comes next. But I'm not sorry for what I did. The ESPN report continued with reaction from other athletes. Charles Barkley appeared on screen, speaking to a reporter in Phoenix. I've known Michael for 15 years, Barkley said. This is the most courageous thing I've ever seen him do. And that's saying something from a guy who won 6 championships. The scene switched to a different reporter in Portland, standing outside the Burnside Community Center. This is where it all started 3 days ago, when Michael Jordan first met 12-year-old Marcus Chen and his mother, Natasha. Tonight, this community is rallying around the family that sparked a national conversation about corporate responsibility. Jordan felt his chest tighten as the camera showed Marcus shooting baskets in the community center gym. The boy's ankle brace was clearly visible, but his determination was even more obvious. He's still practicing, Jordan said to himself. The TV showed a brief interview with Marcus. The reporter knelt down to the boy's level. Marcus, what do you think about Michael Jordan giving up his Nike contract to help families like yours? Marcus looked directly into the camera with the seriousness of someone much older than 12. I think it shows that he's a real champion. Champions don't just win games, they help people. Jordan felt tears forming in his eyes. The scene switched back to the studio, where Dan Patrick was joined by ESPN legal analyst Roger Cossack. Roger, what are the legal implications of Jordan's decision? Dan, this is unprecedented. We're looking at potential lawsuits worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Nike's stock has already dropped 15% since the story broke this morning. What about Jordan's financial exposure? He's walking away from what could be $250 million over the next 10 years. From a purely financial standpoint, this might be the most expensive moral stand in sports history. Juanita muted the television. $250 million, Michael. I heard. Do you really think this was worth it? Jordan walked over to his trophy case and picked up his 1991 NBA championship trophy. He remembered how good it felt to win that first title, how it validated everything he had worked for. You know what I realized yesterday? He said to his wife. All these trophies, all these awards, all this money, none of it matters if I can't look at myself in the mirror. But our children's future will be fine. We have enough money to last 3 lifetimes. But what kind of father would I be if I taught them that money is more important than doing what's right? The doorbell rang. Jordan looked out the window and saw news vans lining his street. They found us, he said. Juanita peeked through the curtains. There must be 20 reporters out there. Jordan's cellular phone rang. He had forgotten to turn it off. The caller ID showed Curtis Jackson, his business manager. I should take this, Jordan told his wife. Michael, thank God, Curtis said when Jordan answered. I've been trying to reach you all morning. Sorry, we unplugged the house phone. Listen, we have a serious problem. It's not just Nike. Gatorade called this morning. They're reassessing your contract. McDonald's wants to meet next week to discuss the situation. Jordan felt his stomach drop. How bad is it? Potentially, we could be looking at $40 million in lost endorsements over the next 2 years. Maybe more if this drags out. Jordan sat down heavily on his couch. Curtis, I need you to understand something. I'm not backing down from this. Michael, please listen to reason. We could still fix this. Nike might be willing to negotiate. Nike had their chance yesterday. They chose to protect their profits instead of admitting their mistakes. But the other sponsors will have to decide what's more important to them, money or integrity. Curtis was quiet for a moment. Michael, I've been your business manager for 8 years. I've never seen you make a decision like this. Maybe that's been the problem. Meanwhile, in Portland, Natasha Chen was dealing with her own media storm. She sat in James Morrison's law office, watching reporters gather outside through the window. How did my name get out? She asked her lawyer. Someone leaked it, probably from Nike's side. They're trying to control the narrative. Morrison's phone rang constantly. Every major news network wanted to interview Natasha and Marcus. What should I do? Natasha asked. That's up to you. But I think you should tell your story. The public needs to hear from you directly. Natasha looked at a fax Morrison had received an hour earlier. It was from Nike's legal department, offering her family $5 million to settle immediately and agree to a non-disclosure agreement. They've increased their offer, she said. Substantially. That's enough money to change your family's life forever. But if you take it, you can't ever talk about what happened. You can't warn other parents. You can't help other families who might face the same situation. Natasha thought about Marcus, who was at school trying to have a normal day despite reporters calling their apartment constantly. What would you do, Mr. Morrison? The lawyer looked out at the protesters gathering in the street below. Some carried pictures of Marcus and other injured children. Honestly, I don't know. $5 million is life-changing money. But what Michael Jordan did yesterday, that might be life-changing for a lot more families. At Portland Elementary School, Marcus Chen was discovering what it meant to be at the center of a national news story. Marcus, how are you handling all this? She asked during lunch. It's weird. Everyone keeps asking me how I feel. But I feel the same as yesterday. What do you mean? My ankle still hurts sometimes. I still want to play basketball. I still think Michael Jordan is the greatest player ever. The only difference is now everyone else cares about it too. Mrs. Rodriguez smiled. That's a very mature way to look at it. My mom says sometimes it takes something bad happening to make people pay attention to problems that were always there. Your mom is very wise. Marcus looked out the classroom window at the reporters outside. Do you think Mr. Jordan will be okay? I saw on TV that he lost a lot of money. I think Mr. Jordan will be fine. He did something very brave to help you and other kids. I hope so. I don't want him to be sad because of me. That afternoon, Jordan finally decided to face the media. He called a press conference for 4 p.m. at the United Center in Chicago. By 3:30, the arena's media room was packed. Local reporters, National television crews and sports journalists from around the world filled every seat. The room fell silent. "Good afternoon," Jordan began. "I want to talk to you about why I ended my relationship with Nike yesterday." He paused and looked around the room. 3 days ago, I met a 12-year-old boy named Marcus Chen. Marcus was injured while playing basketball in a tournament last year. His ankle was broken when the sole of his Air Jordan basketball shoes separated completely from the upper. Jordan's voice was steady but emotional. "Yesterday I learned that Nike knew there were problems with the adhesive used in those shoes. They had reports from their own quality control experts warning about defects. They ignored those warnings." A reporter called out, "Mr. Jordan, how many children were affected?" 23 children that we know of so far. 23 kids who trusted a product that carried my name. Are you saying Nike deliberately sold defective shoes? Jordan chose his words carefully. I'm saying Nike chose to sell shoes they knew might fail rather than spend the money to fix the problem. What was your role in the quality control process? Jordan took a deep breath. That's part of the problem. I had no role. I trusted Nike to maintain the standards that my name represents. That trust was misplaced. Do you regret walking away from your Nike contract? I regret that it took an injured child for me to learn the truth about how my signature products were made, but I don't regret walking away from a company that puts profits ahead of children's safety. What's your message to other Nike-sponsored athletes? Jordan looked directly into the camera. My message is that with great influence comes great responsibility. We can't just take the money and ignore how our products affect the people who buy them. What happens next? Next, my legal team will work with the affected families to ensure they get the support they need. We'll push for better industry standards, and I'll make sure that any future product with my name on it meets the highest safety standards possible. A reporter from ESPN raised her hand. Michael, your business manager estimates you could lose over $200 million from this decision. Any second thoughts? Jordan smiled for the first time during the press conference. I've been rich for a long time. Money can't buy back Marcus Chen's dream of playing high school basketball. But maybe the right decisions going forward can prevent this from happening to other kids. As Jordan left the podium, reporters shouted more questions. Will you sign with another shoe company? Are you suing Nike? What did Marcus Chen say when you told him about your decision? Jordan stopped and turned back to the microphones. Marcus doesn't know yet. I'm calling him after this press conference. I want him to hear it from me directly. That evening, phone calls were made across the country. In Portland, Jordan called Marcus Chen. Hello, Marcus. It's Michael Jordan. Hi, Mr. Jordan. I saw you on TV today. Jordan laughed. I might be in a different kind of trouble than I'm used to. But sometimes trouble is worth it. My mom says you lost a lot of money to help us. Marcus, I want you to understand something. The money I lost was just numbers on paper. What you lost was real. Your ability to play the way you want to play. That's worth more than any contract. In corporate boardrooms across America, executives watched the coverage and made their own decisions. Some, like Gatorade and McDonald's, decided to distance themselves from the controversy. Others, surprisingly, saw an opportunity to align themselves with Jordan's principled stand. By the end of the day, Jordan had lost an estimated $60 million in endorsement deals. But he had gained something else: the respect of millions of people who saw him choose children over cash. As he tucked his own children into bed that night, his daughter asked him a question that made everything clear. Daddy, are you a hero now? Jordan thought about it. I don't know about being a hero, sweetheart, but I think I'm finally being the person I want to be. Outside his house, reporters were still camped out, waiting for the next development in the story. Inside, Michael Jordan slept better than he had in weeks. 3 weeks later, Michael Jordan walked into the federal courthouse in Portland, Oregon. The media crowd outside was even bigger than before. Cameras flashed as he climbed the courthouse steps with his legal team. Today was the day that Nike's internal documents would be made public. Inside the courtroom, Natasha Chen sat at the plaintiff's table with her lawyer, James Morrison. She wore a navy blue suit and looked nervous, but determined. Marcus sat in the gallery behind her, his ankle brace visible beneath his dress pants. Judge Patricia Williams called the court to order. We are here today for the deposition hearings in Chen versus Nike Corporation. The court will review internal company documents related to quality control procedures. Jordan took a seat in the public gallery. As Nike's former business partner, he wasn't allowed to sit with either legal team. But he wanted to be there when the truth finally came out. Nike's legal team occupied 2 full tables. Lead attorney Margaret Stevens stood to address the judge. Your Honor, Nike Corporation maintains that this case involves an unfortunate accident, not corporate negligence. Athletic equipment carries inherent risks. Morrison stood up for the Chen family. Your Honor, we have evidence that Nike knowingly ignored safety warnings from their own quality control experts. Proceed with the document review. Judge Williams said. The first document appeared on screens throughout the courtroom. It was Natasha's original report from March 1994, warning about adhesive problems. Morrison read aloud, adhesive batch number 4071B shows bond failure in 15% of test samples. Recommend rejection of entire batch and investigation of supplier quality control. Jordan watched the Nike lawyers who looked uncomfortable. The second document was Nike's response to Natasha's report. It was stamped in red, cost prohibited, archived. What does cost prohibitive mean? Morrison asked the Nike representative on the witness stand. Richard Blackwood, the same executive Jordan had confronted weeks earlier, shifted in his chair. It means the suggested action would be too expensive to implement. Too expensive compared to what? Compared to the potential cost of the suggested recalls or production delays. Morrison pulled up another document. This is an internal memo from Nike's finance department. Can you read the highlighted section? Blackwood reluctantly read. Estimated cost of adhesive replacement $500,000. Estimated cost of legal settlements for potential injuries, $200,000 maximum. The courtroom murmured at this revelation. So Nike calculated that it would be cheaper to pay injury settlements than fix the shoes. That's not exactly. Did you or did you not decide that $500,000 was too much to spend on safety but $200,000 for injury settlements was acceptable? Jordan felt sick to his stomach. The company he had trusted with his reputation had literally put a price on children's safety. 47 pairs. And how many injuries have been reported to date? Blackwood consulted his notes. 30. Jordan's head snapped up. The number had grown from 23 to 31 in just 3 weeks. That's nearly 4% of the total production. Would you consider that an acceptable failure rate? Every product has some failure rate. Yes or no, Mr. Blackwood, is a 4% injury rate acceptable for children's athletic equipment? No. Morrison pulled up the next document. This is an email from Sarah Williams, Nike's former vice president of quality assurance. Can you read what she wrote to the CEO? Blackwood's voice was barely audible. Phil, we need to recall the youth Jordan 11s immediately. The adhesive problems are worse than initial reports suggested. If we don't act now, we're going to have seriously injured children on our conscience. What was the CEO's response? Another email appeared on screen. Phil Knight's reply was brief. Sarah, the financial impact of a recall would be devastating to this quarter's earnings. Let's monitor the situation and handle problems as they arise. Handle problems as they arise, Morrison repeated. By problems he meant injured children? Jordan watched Sarah Williams, who was sitting in the gallery. She had tears in her eyes. Morrison called Williams to the witness stand. Miss Williams, why are you no longer employed by Nike? I was terminated 6 months ago for what they called philosophical differences with company direction. What were those philosophical differences? Williams looked directly at the Nike legal team. I believed that children's safety was more important than quarterly forfeits. Apparently that was the wrong philosophy. Tell the court about the phone call you received in May. Williams took a deep breath. I got a call from a hospital in Detroit. A 13-year-old boy named Tommy Washington had been brought in with severe knee injuries. His Air Jordan shoe had completely separated during a basketball game, causing him to fall awkwardly. Jordan remembered reading about Tommy in his research. What did you do? I immediately called our quality control department to pull the production records for that shoe's serial number. It came from the same batch that Natasha Chen had flagged for problems. Did you report this to Nike management? Yes. I sent an urgent memo recommending an immediate recall of all remaining shoes from that production run. What was the response? I was told that one injury wasn't enough to justify a recall. They said we should wait and see if more problems developed. Morrison showed another document. This is your memo from 3 weeks later. What had changed? 2 more children had been injured. I had documented evidence of a pattern of failures all related to the same adhesive batch. And Nike's response? Williams's voice broke slightly. They transferred me to a different department, away from quality control. My replacement was instructed not to pursue the adhesive issue further. Jordan felt his hands clenching into fists. Everything Sarah Williams was describing matched what Natasha had experienced. Miss Williams, in your expert opinion, could these injuries have been prevented? Absolutely. If Nike had acted on the initial quality control reports, or if they had issued a recall after the first injury, 30 other children would not have been hurt. Nike's lawyer, Margaret Stevens, stood up for cross-examination. Ms. Williams, isn't it true that you were terminated for poor performance, not for philosophical differences? No, that's false. Isn't it true that you've been shopping around a book deal about your time at Nike? I've been contacted by publishers, yes, but I'm here today because children were hurt by preventable defects. How much money do you expect to make from your book? Morrison objected. Relevance, Your Honor. Sustained. Judge Williams said. The Nike lawyer tried a different approach. Ms. Williams, don't all athletic shoes have some risk of failure? Yes, but there's a difference between unavoidable accidents and preventable defects. This was preventable. During a break, Jordan stepped outside the courthouse. Reporters immediately surrounded him. Mr. Jordan, how does it feel to hear this testimony? Jordan looked directly into the cameras. It makes me sick. I trusted Nike with my reputation and with the safety of kids who looked up to me. That trust was betrayed. Are you considering legal action against Nike yourself? I'm considering how to make sure this never happens to another child. Do you regret ending your Nike contract? I regret that it took so long for the truth to come out. Back in the courtroom, Morrison called his final witness. Marcus Chen. The 12-year-old walked to the witness stand with his characteristic limp. He looked small in the large chair, but his voice was clear and strong. Marcus, can you tell the court about the day you were injured? We were playing in the championship game. I had been playing really well. With about 2 minutes left, I got a steal and was running for an easy basket. What happened next? I went up for the layup, and when I came down, my shoe just fell apart. The bottom part came completely off. I landed wrong and heard my ankle pop. Jordan wiped away a tear. How has the injury affected your life? Marcus looked at his mother, then back at the lawyer. I can't play the same way anymore. I can't run as fast or jump as high. The doctors say I might need more surgery when I'm older. Do you still play basketball? Marcus smiled for the first time during his testimony. Every day. I've learned to play differently. I'm better at shooting and passing now. What do you want to say to the people who made the decision to sell shoes they knew might be defective? Marcus looked directly at the Nike legal team. His words were simple but powerful. I just want them to say they're sorry, and I want them to promise they won't let this happen to other kids. The courtroom was completely silent. Morrison concluded, Your Honor, the evidence is clear. Nike knew their product was defective. They calculated the cost of fixes versus settlements. They chose profits over children's safety. And when their own employees tried to prevent these injuries, Nike silenced them. Judge Williams reviewed the documents one final time. This court finds sufficient evidence of corporate negligence to proceed to full trial. However, I strongly encourage both parties to consider a settlement that addresses not just monetary damages but systematic changes to prevent future occurrences. As the court session ended, Jordan approached Marcus and Natasha. How are you holding up? He asked the boy. It was scary talking in front of all those people, but I wanted them to hear what really happened. You were very brave. Marcus looked up at Jordan. Mr. Jordan, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think Nike will actually say they're sorry? Jordan knelt down to Marcus's eye level. I don't know, son. But whether they do or not, you've already won something more important than any apology. What's that? You've shown other kids that it's okay to speak up when something's wrong. Even when it's scary. Even when you're going against powerful people. Marcus smiled. My dad always said that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing the right thing even when you are scared. Jordan stood up and shook hands with Natasha. Your husband was a wise man, and he'd be very proud of both of you. Outside the courthouse, Jordan faced the media one more time. Mr. Jordan, now that you've heard Nike's internal documents, do you have any regrets about your business relationship with them? Jordan thought carefully before answering. I regret that I didn't ask harder questions earlier. I regret that it took Marcus Chen's injury for me to learn how my products were really made. But I don't regret walking away from a company that treated children's safety as a cost-benefit analysis. What's next for you? Next, I'm going to make sure that any product with my name on it in the future meets the highest safety standards. And I'm going to support these families until every one of them gets the justice they deserve. As Jordan walked away from the courthouse, he felt something he hadn't experienced in his business career. Complete certainty that he was on the right side of a fight. The truth was finally out. Now the real work could begin. 2 days after the courthouse revelations, Michael Jordan stood in his Chicago office, surrounded by boxes of documents. Phone messages covered his desk. Legal papers were stacked in every corner. The fallout from the Nike testimony was bigger than anyone had expected. His assistant, Maria Santos, knocked on the door. "Michael, you have 3 urgent calls. Adidas wants to meet about a new contract. Reebok is flying executives in tomorrow." And she paused, looking uncertain. "And what?" Phil Knight from Nike called personally. "He wants to talk." Jordan looked at the message slip in Maria's hand. After everything that had happened, Nike's CEO still wanted to negotiate. "What did you tell him?" "I told him you were busy, but he said it was important." "Something about a new proposal." Jordan crumpled up the message and threw it in the trash. "I'm done talking to Nike." His phone rang immediately. Jordan almost didn't answer it, but he recognized the Portland area code. "Hello? Mr. Jordan? This is Natasha Chen." "Natasha, how are you holding up after the courthouse yesterday?" "We're okay, but that's not why I'm calling." Her voice sounded different. "Worried. What's wrong?" "I got a call this morning from Nike's lawyers. They want to meet with me privately. Without my lawyer present." Jordan felt his stomach tighten. "What did they offer?" $7 million. Cash settlement. "All I have to do is sign a paper saying that yesterday's testimony was exaggerated." "Exaggerated?" "They want me to say I was emotional and may have misremembered some details about my factory reports." Jordan began pacing around his office. "Natasha, you can't seriously be considering this." There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. "Natasha? Michael, it's $7 million. More money than I ever dreamed of having. I could pay off all of Marcus's medical bills. I could buy us a house. I could send him to college. But it would mean lying about what really happened." "I know. That's why I called you. I don't know what to do." Jordan sat down at his desk and looked at the photograph of Marcus that he kept there. Now, the boy was smiling despite his ankle brace. "What does Marcus think?" "He doesn't know about the offer yet. But yesterday after his testimony, he said something that's been bothering me." "What did he say?" "He said he was proud that he helped tell the truth. That maybe now other kids wouldn't get hurt the same way." Jordan understood the dilemma. Natasha could secure her family's financial future, but it would mean betraying the principle that had brought them this far. "Natasha, I can't make this decision for you. But I can tell you something." "What?" "Whatever you decide, I'll support you. If you take the money, I understand. You've already sacrificed more than anyone should have to for this fight. But if you don't take the money, if you stick with the truth, then we can really make sure this never happens to another family." After Jordan hung up, he stared out his office window at the Chicago skyline. $7 million was a lot of money for anyone, but especially for a single mother who had lost her job for trying to do the right thing. His phone rang again. This time it was David Stern, his lawyer. "Michael, we have a problem." "What now?" "I just got off the phone with attorneys representing 8 of the other injured families. Nike has made similar offers to all of them. Big money in exchange for retracting their stories." Jordan felt his heart sink. "How big?" "Between 3 and 5 million per family. We're talking about $40 million total in settlements." "Are they taking the deals?" 3 families have already signed. 2 more are seriously considering it. Jordan realized that Nike's strategy was working. By offering huge sums to individual families, they were dismantling the larger case piece by piece. What happens if most of them settle? Then Marcus and Natasha become isolated. Nike can argue that the other families were satisfied with the settlements, so the problem wasn't really that serious. Jordan paced to his window again. "We can't let that happen. Michael, legally there's nothing we can do to stop families from settling. They have every right to accept Nike's offers. Then we have to give them a reason not to." That afternoon, Jordan made a decision that surprised everyone. including himself. He called a meeting with all the affected families, not through lawyers, not through legal proceedings. A personal meeting. "Are you sure about this?" David Stern asked as they prepared for the meeting at a hotel conference room in Portland. "This is highly unusual. Everything about this situation has been unusual." Stern looked at his notes. 17 families confirmed they're coming. That represents 22 of the 31 injured children. What about the families who already settled? They can't attend. Their settlement agreements include non-disclosure clauses. Jordan felt sad about that. Those families would never be able to share their stories or warn other parents. The hotel conference room filled up slowly. Jordan recognized some faces from news reports, but most of these families he was meeting for the first time. There was Maria Santos, no relation to his assistant, and her daughter Elena, a 10-year-old who had fractured her ankle in Los Angeles. David Park, a Korean-American father, whose son Jimmy had torn knee ligaments in Seattle. Sarah Williams, the former Nike executive, attended with her husband to show support. Marcus Chen sat in the front row with his mother and grandmother. His ankle brace was visible beneath his jeans, but he looked excited to meet the other families. Jordan stood at the front of the room. He had given hundreds of speeches to thousands of people, but he had never felt more nervous than he did facing these 38 parents and children. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "I know this has been a difficult time for your families." A mother in the back row raised her hand. "Mr. Jordan, before we start, I want to ask you something directly." "Yes? Why should we trust you?" "You made millions of dollars from Nike for years. You could have prevented this if you had paid attention to your own products." Jordan nodded. The question was fair and deserved an honest answer. "You're right. I should have known. I should have asked harder questions. I should have visited factories and met quality control workers like Natasha." He looked around the room at the faces staring back at him. "I can't change the past. But I can tell you that I'm here now because I realize that my signature on a product means I'm responsible for what happens to the people who use it." A father near the front spoke up. "Nike offered my family $4 million yesterday. That's more money than I'll make in 20 years. Why shouldn't I take it?" "Because," came a voice from the front row. Everyone turned to see Marcus Chen standing up. "Marcus," his mother whispered, "sit down." "No, Mom. I want to say something." The room fell silent as the 12-year-old walked to the front. "My name is Marcus Chen. I'm the kid who got hurt first. At least I'm the first one anyone paid attention to." Marcus looked at the other injured children in the room. "For a long time I thought what happened to me was just bad luck. But then I found out that Nike knew their shoes might break. They knew kids might get hurt. And they sold them anyway." His voice got stronger as he continued. "If we all take the money and promise to stay quiet, then Nike wins. They get to keep making dangerous shoes because nobody will be allowed to warn other kids about them." Marcus turned to face Jordan. "Mr. Jordan gave up millions of dollars to help us. Not because he had to, but because he thought it was right. Now we have to decide what's right too." The room was completely silent. Marcus looked at each family. "I know the money is important. My mom works 2 jobs. We don't have a lot. But if we take Nike's money and stay quiet, then the next kid who gets hurt won't have anyone to help them." He walked back to his seat. A father in the middle of the room stood up. "Marcus is right. This isn't just about our families anymore." Another parent nodded. "But $4 million. Jordan stepped forward. "I understand. You shouldn't have to choose between your family's financial security and doing what's right. That's not a fair choice." "Then what do you suggest?" asked Elena Santos's mother. Jordan took a deep breath. What he was about to propose would shock everyone in the room. "I suggest we fight this together. All of us. And I suggest we demand something from Nike that's worth more than any settlement they could offer." "What's that?" asked David Park. "Accountability. A public apology to every affected family, changes to their safety procedures, and a fund to help other children who might be injured by defective sports equipment in the future." "But what about the money our families need now?" asked another parent. Jordan looked around the room at these families who had been through so much. "I want to start a foundation. The Jordan Youth Safety Foundation. Every family here will receive financial support for medical expenses, counseling, and educational costs. But more importantly, we'll work together to make sure this never happens to another child." Sarah Williams, the former Nike executive, stood up. Mr. Jordan, that's a generous offer. But starting a foundation takes time. These families need help now. Jordan nodded. That's why I'm personally guaranteeing immediate support. Whatever each family needs for medical bills, lost wages, counseling, I'll cover it personally while we set up the foundation. The room erupted in surprised conversations. How much are we talking about? Someone asked. Whatever it takes. 2 million, 5 million, 10 million. I don't care. Natasha Chen stood up. Michael, you can't do that. You've already lost so much money. Natasha, I've learned something these past few weeks. Money is just a tool. It's only valuable if you use it for something that matters. Marcus raised his hand. Mr. Jordan, if we do this, if we stay together and fight Nike, will it really help other kids? Jordan knelt down to Marcus's eye level. I promise you, Marcus. If we do this right, if we stay united, we can change how athletic companies think about safety. We can make sure that quality control experts like your mother are listened to, not fired. Marcus looked at the other children in the room. What do you guys think? One by one, the injured children began to speak up. I think we should do it, said Elena Santos. Me too, said Jimmy Park. If it helps other kids, then yes, said another. Jordan watched as these families made the hardest decision of their lives. They were choosing principle over financial security. They were choosing to trust him with their futures. By the end of the meeting, 16 of the 17 families had agreed to reject Nike's settlement offers and join Jordan's foundation. As the families filed out of the room, Natasha approached Jordan. Are you sure you know what you're getting into? She asked. No, Jordan admitted, but I know what I'm getting out of. What's that? A life where I only cared about winning games and making money. This feels more important than any championship I ever won. Marcus walked over to them. Mr. Jordan, can I ask you something? Do you think my dad would be proud of what we're doing? Jordan put his hand on the boy's shoulder. Marcus, I think your father would be amazed at how brave and smart you've become. You're not just fighting for yourself anymore. You're fighting for kids you'll never meet. That's what heroes do, right? Jordan smiled. That's exactly what heroes do. As Jordan left the hotel that evening, he realized that his life had changed forever. He was no longer just an athlete or a celebrity. He was now responsible for 31 injured children and their families. But for the first time since this all began, he felt like he knew exactly what he was supposed to be doing. The real fight was just beginning. 1 week later, Michael Jordan stood behind a podium at the Portland Community Center. The same gym where he first met Marcus Chen was now packed with reporters from around the world. This was the press conference everyone had been waiting for. Behind Jordan sat the families who had joined his foundation. Marcus Chen was in the front row, wearing his Bulls jersey. Natasha sat beside him, holding a folder of documents. Ladies and gentlemen, Jordan began, thank you for coming. Today I want to tell you about the most important decision I've ever made. The room fell silent. Cameras focused on Jordan's face. 6 weeks ago, I thought this story was about a defective shoe that hurt a young boy. I thought it was about a $5 million lawsuit. I was wrong. Jordan paused and looked at Marcus. This story is about something much bigger. It's about what happens when powerful companies put profits ahead of children's safety. And it's about what we do when we discover the truth. A reporter raised her hand. Mr. Jordan, Nike has made a final settlement offer. Can you tell us about it? Jordan nodded. Yesterday, Nike offered me a new contract. Not just a shoe deal, a complete partnership. They offered me $50 million over 5 years to end my involvement in this case. The room erupted in surprised murmurs. They also offered each remaining family $10 million to settle quietly. That's over $200 million in total payments. Jordan let that number sink in. But Nike's offer came with conditions. We would have to sign agreements saying that we were wrong about the safety issues. We would have to say that the injuries were just accidents. And we would never be allowed to talk about any of this again. A reporter from ESPN called out, "Are you taking the deal?" He looked directly into the cameras. "I'm here to tell you that some things can't be bought. And some fights are worth more than any amount of money." Jordan reached into his jacket and pulled out a piece of paper. "This morning I signed papers rejecting Nike's $50 million offer. Every family behind me has done the same thing." The room exploded with questions. But Jordan held up his hand for silence. But that's not the shocking part. He turned to face Natasha Chen, who stood up and joined him at the podium. "Natasha, please tell them what you discovered." Natasha leaned toward the microphone, her voice steady and clear. 3 days ago, I received a phone call from someone I never expected to hear from, a private investigator who had been following our family for months. The reporters leaned forward. At first, I thought Nike had hired him to find dirt on us, to pressure us into settling, but I was wrong. Natasha looked at Jordan with obvious emotion. The investigator wasn't working for Nike. He was working for Michael Jordan. Jordan stepped back to the microphone. "When I learned about the lawsuits, I hired a security firm to protect the Chen family. I was worried that a big corporation might try to intimidate them. But that's not all the investigator found," Natasha continued. "Tell them about the meeting, Michael." Jordan took a deep breath. 2 weeks ago, Natasha received another call from Nike's lawyers. They asked her to meet them privately, without her attorney present. "What happened at that meeting?" a reporter asked. Natasha answered, "They offered me $15 million. The biggest settlement offer yet. But they also asked me to do something else." The room was completely silent. "They asked me to convince Michael Jordan to take their new contract offer. They said if I could get him to stop his investigation and go back to Nike, they would give me an additional $5 million bonus." Jordan watched the reporters' faces register shock. "So Nike offered you $20 million total to betray me?" "Yes. And I want everyone to know what I told them." Natasha's voice grew stronger. "I told them that Michael Jordan had already lost millions of dollars defending my family. He had walked away from the most profitable endorsement deal in sports history to stand up for children he had never met." She turned to face Jordan. "And I told them that if they thought I would betray someone like that for money, then they understood nothing about what this fight was really about." Jordan felt tears forming in his eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what courage looks like. Natasha Chen was offered more money than most people see in a lifetime. Money that would have changed her family's life forever. And she turned it down to protect someone who was trying to help her. A reporter from the Washington Post raised her hand. "Mrs. Chen, why didn't you take the money? Your family has been struggling financially." Natasha looked at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. "Because my son was watching. And I realized that no amount of money was worth teaching him that loyalty and integrity can be purchased." She paused, collecting her thoughts. Michael Jordan didn't have to help us. He could have taken Nike's first settlement offer and walked away. Instead, he sacrificed his own financial security to fight for children he didn't even know. Natasha's voice cracked with emotion. "He showed my son what a real champion looks like. Not someone who just wins games, but someone who stands up for people who can't stand up for themselves." Jordan stepped back to the microphone. "But the most shocking part of this story isn't what Natasha did for me. It's what I learned about myself." He looked at the families sitting behind him. "For 20 years, I've been measuring success by championships and money, by endorsement deals and fame. But these past few weeks have taught me something different." Jordan's voice grew stronger. "Real success is measured by the impact you have on other people's lives. By whether you use your influence to help or to harm. By whether you stand up for what's right when it costs you something important." A reporter called out, "Mr. Jordan, you've now walked away from potentially $300 million in Nike deals. Do you have any regret?" Jordan looked at Marcus Chen, who was listening intently to every word. "My only regret is that it took an injured 12-year-old boy to teach me what really matters in life." He turned back to the reporters. "But here's what I want everyone to understand. This isn't just a story about Michael Jordan or Nike or even these brave families. This is about all of us." Jordan walked out from behind the podium, closer to the cameras. "Every time we buy something, we're voting with our money. We're telling companies what we value. If we only care about the lowest price or the coolest design, then we're telling them that safety and quality don't matter." "What do you want consumers to do?" asked a reporter from CNN. "I want them to ask questions. Who made this product? How was it tested? What happens if something goes wrong? I want them to support companies that put safety first, even when it costs more." Jordan walked back to the podium. "But most importantly, I want them to remember that behind every product recall, every safety warning, every lawsuit like this one, there are real families dealing with real consequences." He gestured toward Marcus. "This isn't just about defective shoes. It's about a boy who may never run the same way again. It's about dreams that were damaged by preventable injuries." A reporter from Sports Illustrated raised her hand. "What happens next?" Jordan smiled. "Next, we announced the Jordan Youth Safety Foundation officially. Our mission is to prevent sports-related injuries through better safety standards and equipment testing. How will it work? We're partnering with children's hospitals, sports medicine experts, and yes, even ethical manufacturers who want to make safer products. Jordan looked at Natasha. Natasha Chen will serve as our Director of Quality Standards. She'll oversee all product testing and safety protocols. The reporters scribbled notes frantically. We're also launching a scholarship program for young athletes who have been injured by defective equipment. They'll receive educational support and access to the best medical care available. Jordan paused for effect. I'm donating my entire 1995-1996 NBA salary to the foundation. That's approximately $3. The room erupted in surprised conversations. But that's not all, Jordan continued. I'm also donating all speaking fees, appearance payments, and any future endorsement income for the next 2 years. We estimate that's another 50. A reporter stood up in shock. Mr. Jordan, you're giving away over $20 million. I'm investing $20 million in something more valuable than any bank account. What's that? Jordan looked at Marcus Chen, who was smiling proudly. The future safety of every child who plays sports in America. But Jordan wasn't finished. There's one more thing. Something that will surprise everyone, including some people in this room. He walked over to Marcus and put his hand on the boy's shoulder. I've also decided to start my own athletic equipment company. A company built on the principle that safety comes first, always. The reporters were frantically taking notes. And I want Natasha Chen to be my Vice President of Quality Control. She'll have final approval on every product we make. Natasha looked shocked. Michael, you tried to prevent these injuries when you worked at Nike. They fired you for it. Now I'm asking you to help me build a company that will listen to people like you. Jordan turned back to the reporters. Our first product will be basketball shoes designed with input from sports medicine experts and safety engineers. They'll cost more to make because we'll use the best materials and the most thorough testing. When will these shoes be available? Asked a reporter. Next year. And here's something that's never been done before. Every pair will come with a guarantee. If any child is injured because of a manufacturing defect, we'll pay for all medical expenses and provide ongoing support. The room was buzzing with excitement. What will you call this company? Someone asked. Jordan looked at the families behind him, then at Marcus Chen. We're calling it Champion Safety. Because real champions protect the people who look up to them. Marcus stood up and walked to the microphone. Jordan stepped aside to let the boy speak. I just want to say something, Marcus began, his voice clear and confident. 6 weeks ago, I was just a kid who got hurt playing basketball. I was sad and angry, and I didn't understand why it happened to me. Marcus looked at Jordan. But then Michael Jordan showed me that sometimes bad things happen so that better things can come from them. My injury helped expose a problem that could have hurt lots more kids. Marcus turned to face the cameras. And now, because of what happened to me and these other kids, future players will be safer. That makes me proud. He smiled. Besides, I'm getting pretty good at playing basketball with this ankle brace. Maybe I'll invent a whole new style of playing. The room erupted in applause. As the press conference ended, reporters rushed to file their stories. The headlines would read, Jordan gives guy $20 million, starts safety company, and the most expensive moral stand in sports history. But in the community center gym, as the cameras were being packed away, a different story was unfolding. Marcus Chen was showing some of the other injured children his modified basketball techniques. Despite their various braces and limitations, they were all laughing and playing together. Jordan watched them and realized something profound. He had started this journey thinking he was saving these kids. But they had saved him. They had shown him what real victory looked like. Michael, are you sure about all this? Starting a company, the foundation, giving away all that money? Jordan picked up a basketball and dribbled it slowly. Natasha, I've been rich and famous for a long time, but I've never felt as wealthy as I do right now. What do you mean? Jordan passed the ball to Marcus, who caught it and immediately started teaching another child a new shooting technique. Jordan smiled as Marcus made a perfect shot despite his ankle brace. That's worth more than any contract Nike could ever offer. As the families packed up to leave, each one stopped to thank Jordan personally. But he kept redirecting their thanks to their children. Thank Marcus, he told each parent. He's the one who had the courage to speak up when powerful people wanted him to stay quiet. 3 months later, Marcus Chen would throw out the first pitch at a Chicago Bulls game. He would be introduced as the young man who taught Michael Jordan what it means to be a champion. Marcus would nail the pitch perfectly, despite his ankle brace. And in the stands, wearing the jersey of Jordan's new company, Champion Safety, 30 other children who had been injured by defective equipment would cheer. They were all healing, all moving forward, all part of something bigger than themselves. Michael Jordan had faced the woman who almost cost him $5 million. His response had shocked the world. And in doing so, he had discovered what true greatness actually looked like. Michael Jordan's shocking response, walking away from hundreds of millions of dollars to protect injured children, reminds us that real champions are measured not by what they win, but by what they're willing to give up for others. We'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment and tell us your city or country. It's amazing to connect with listeners from around the world. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring true stories like this one. We share tales of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and famous figures showing us what real character looks like. Most importantly, share this video with your friends and family. Stories like Michael Jordan's and the Chen family's courage deserve to be heard. When we spread these messages of integrity and kindness, we help create a world where doing the right thing matters more than doing the profitable thing. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the most shocking response is simply choosing to do what's right, no matter what it costs. Until next time, keep inspiring others through your own acts of kindness and courage.